In this video, I'm going to explain what anxiety is and why anxiety affects your sleep and what you can do to start sleeping better. So what is anxiety? Well, anxiety really is a feeling of worry and unease, those feelings that you get when you're feeling really tense and afraid, causing you to feel almost anxious about any situation rather than anything really specific. And if you're living with anxiety, you probably can't recall a time when you felt fully relaxed, because as soon as one anxious thought is dealt with, it's often replaced by another, and that gets you caught in a trap of negative thinking. Anxiety affects your thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, and it continues even when the cause of anxiety isn't clear to you. So it's no surprise then, is it, that it leads to sleepless nights, because the anxiety and worry leads to ruminations about concerns at bedtime, increasing anxiety at night, stopping you from sleeping. So why does that happen and what can be done? So why does anxiety stop you sleeping? Well, when you're anxious or you're living with anxiety disorders, they actually encourage you to worry about almost every situation and create prolonged periods of negative stress. And so your brain begins to actually lose access to your natural resting state, keeping you in a state of flight and fight, keeping that engaged. So it becomes really difficult to fully relax, rest, and then sleep deeply at night. It's a bit of a vicious cycle, because when you're already feeling anxious and stressed, your brain's maintaining a heightened state of alert, and it encourages you to be negative and worry about what happened today, what's going to happen tomorrow, and it fills you with dread as you imagine the worst. It really does encourage you to avoid threats too, so often these days doing the things that you want to do or you need to do in our daily life are avoided, and this only serves to confirm to your anxious mind that avoiding those things are the best ways to survive, and often therefore it encourages you to do that again and again. And it's so hard, isn't it, to relax and sleep when we're anxious, because our body becomes very tense and our minds ruminate in all sorts of situations. And in this state, our imagination takes over and your brain forms all sorts of new neural pathways which create maps for all kinds of future perspectives and emotions, which are all based on the negative thought patterns and the mental state that you find yourself in at that moment. The problem is that your thoughts are so powerful and the brain really can't tell the difference between real or imagined events, and it believes everything that we tell it. So everything that you think about might as well be happening to you. And if it's a negative thought, it's converted into more anxiety, which affects the way that you live your life, creating more anxious, fearful and negative thinking, which often results in poor interactions with other people. It interferes with your clarity of thought, and it affects your confidence and your ability to enjoy life. And so we end up in a state of emotional paralysis. So can anxiety and sleep improve? Is it possible to stop anxiety taking over and start sleeping again? Well, the short answer is yes, but often it isn't an immediate or quick fix. Instead, expect to see a gradual improvement as you focus on certain things which help you feel calmer, so you can relax before sleeping, and more specific ways that research shows reduces anxiety, which leads to more positive thoughts and behaviours, breaking that cycle of anxiety and dread. And as you do, sleep improves, anxiety reduces, and you begin to shift the unwanted thoughts and behaviours and habits. So how do you start this? How do you begin? Well, one of the simplest ways is start by just giving yourself the best possible chance of sleeping. Often, it's the small things that can really make a big difference, such as avoiding eating too much late in the day, because digestion, of course, is an active process, avoiding caffeine in the afternoon and the evenings, and cutting out alcohol. Now, we all know that these things have a direct impact on our ability to sleep, so making some small changes there will really begin to help the process. And simple things to improve your environment too really help. Is the bedroom comfortable? Is the room dark and cool? Really make sure that your bedroom is a place of calm relaxation, so remove anything that might really act as a disruptor to sleep. And that's really important because your mind is so sensitive to associations. And to give you an example, actually, a client of mine recently always worked from home, and she set up her desk, her laptop and her notebook in her bedroom to really keep it separate from the rest of the house and her daily life. Good idea for quiet meetings, of course, but it quickly became apparent that at bedtime, those things became a reminder of all the tasks and activities and the pressures of work. And so that really stimulated her brain into action. So it's no surprise, of course, that she's finding it hard to relax and then go off to sleep at bedtime. Now, once she made the decision to move the desk out of the bedroom and make her room a place for relaxing and sleeping only, sleep became much more easier and of course much better too. So how do you reduce anxiety? Well, one of the simplest ways is to start by imagining a metaphorical stress bucket in your mind. And that's a metaphor that's borrowed from the professor of psychology, Dr. Don Clifton. And what happens is that every worry, concern or negative thought that you have goes into this bucket in your mind, and of course it begins to fill up. And the thoughts can be about what's happening to you right now, tomorrow, or in the days and months gone by. And it happens whether they're real or imagined events actually, and the worries that we have, particularly at bedtime, go into this bucket and it just continually fills up. So when we're anxious, these thoughts continually drip into this bucket, and as it fills up, so we become more anxious, angry, sad and emotional, and our thoughts and behaviours become more and more negative and obsessional. The stress hormones, of course, cortisol and adrenaline increase, keeping us alert, keeping us tense, so sleeping just becomes difficult and sometimes impossible. So to start sleeping, you of course need to empty this bucket and stop piling so much into it so you can switch off that stress response. And as you do, the stress bucket empties and it comes down sufficiently, anxiety and stress levels come down too, adrenaline and cortisol are reduced, and so you begin to feel more relaxed, more positive, and you begin to sleep better. So how can you empty your stress bucket and relieve anxiety? Well, start simply by reminding yourself to focus on the positive things in life. And when you do, it actually reduces the amount, of course, that we habitually worry about. Now, as with anything, especially when you're anxious, it can be difficult, can't it, to find something positive. But just start with the really simple, small things. Maybe the clear blue sky, maybe that person that smiled at you when you popped out, or maybe that well done email from your boss. That really is the first step in building new healthy patterns which break that cycle of negative thinking and worry. The more you practice noticing the positive things in life, even the smallest things, or perhaps the things that you're grateful for, it all helps strengthen the positive connections in your brain, helping you to rewire your brain for happiness. Now, one of my favourite ways to do this, especially as part of a bedtime routine, is journaling. Just keeping things positive and very simply writing down 4 or 5 things which have been good about your day. It can be absolutely anything. It just helps to refocus your mind. The more you practice doing this, you'll find yourself noticing more and more positive things, more and more good things each day. And there's plenty of evidence and research to suggest that there are other certain activities which also help you empty your stress buckets too. And I think of these really as part of a jigsaw puzzle, part of your self-care. And I call those the 3 Ps. These 3 Ps really help reduce your stress hormones and boost your positive neurochemicals such as serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine and endorphins. The first one is positive action, just getting on with things in your life, moving around a bit more, maybe going for a walk or taking some exercise or just getting something ticked off your to-do list. And when you do, it reduces stress chemicals and it boosts your endorphins. The second one is positive interactions, finding ways to see or to chat to people that you like. It increases serotonin, oxytocin, and that really enhances your mood and again reduces stress levels. The third one is positive thinking, and now as we've already discovered, that switches the focus in your mind and it breaks that cycle of negative thinking, and that quickly becomes a nice healthy habit. It reduces the fight or flight response and it boosts your mood and your confidence too. Now, ironically, the next way that we empty our stress buckets is by using our own natural method, sleeping. And more specifically, the REM stage of sleep, that part where we have those really vivid dreams. Now, in his book, The User's Guide to the Brain, John Ratey explains how during REM sleep, a host of neurons operating on autopilot, and less constrained due to sleep, create imagery of both clear dreams and metaphorical fantasy dreams. And these fantastic images and stories occur during that REM sleep. And that's really how our brains work to make sense of what's been going on during the previous day and takes control of those experiences. And so when we sleep and we have the right amount of REM sleep, we deal with the emotional stuff in our stress buckets and we begin to empty them. So we start the day with an emptier bucket with less anxiety, less stress, and so we feel calmer, confident, and more in control, ready to face the day. And so the next night, we sleep a bit better, and so anxiety begins to get reduced. And because we're focusing on the positive things in life, in terms of what's been good, which we've already touched on, then we're putting less into the buckets too. Now when it comes to bedtime, maybe you'll find listening to guided relaxation helps too. I give my clients guided hypnosis tracks to listen to at bedtime because it guides them into a deeply relaxed state, into that trance state, where we can bring on REM. And that really helps them drift off to sleep and empty their buckets, helping them to build more positive thought patterns subconsciously as they listen to the suggestions made. So will sleep improve and your anxiety go away? Well, absolutely. When you're ready for change and you put in consistent practices and you make improvements to your routines and you challenge negative thoughts, change really can happen. Now, if you're living with anxiety or you're living with an anxiety disorder, maybe you want to seek out some professional support from your GP or your medical health practitioner. But with the right support, skills and commitment to your own self-care, sleep and anxiety can definitely be improved. Well, that's it for this video. For more content to build better mental health and a stronger mind, make sure you subscribe to the channel and visit my website for more resources, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.